Something is about to change in the Mediterranean. There is a tiny island that has been quietly sitting at the crossroads of civilizations for thousands of years. Now, the Americans are coming. Delta Airlines just launched the first ever direct flights from the United States to Malta. And that could change everything. Because right now, before the prices go up, before the crowds arrive, this place is still exactly what it has always been. Ancient, quiet, and extraordinarily beautiful. Masstourism has destroyed lots of these peaceful places in Europe, not only for tourists, but most importantly for locals. Increasing crowds and housing prices, the loss of local identity, and the decreasing quality of life for locals are impacting cities like Barcelona, Paris, and London. Now the question is, will this island be next?
Welcome to Malta. We are in Valletta, Malta's capital, and it is the European Union's smallest capital, but it keeps winning Best Destination awards. And the minute I arrived here, I understood why. This city is actually beautiful. Just look at this view here behind me, and there are so many views like this here. There's so much history here in this place, and we're going to explore that, but also the fact that getting these kind of Best Destination awards has an impact on local life and, well, on tourism in general as well. So let's dive into Valletta and let's explore Malta today. Behind me you can see a rather small harbor, but it is a harbor that was, historically speaking, one of the most important harbors in the world. It is exactly here where the Knights of St. John, a medieval military order, has built their fortress to defend Malta against the Ottoman Empire. And it is also here where they celebrated a huge Ottoman siege in 1565. And historians say that this siege has changed the direction of history of Europe. We are on Malta, a tiny island that, historically speaking, has had a lot of influences from various empires that fought for this island. And today Malta is facing new problems. Malta is becoming more and more popular amongst tourists. There are now new flights, direct flights from the United States of America, which means more and more tourists will arrive here on this very tiny island, and of course this will have an impact on local life. So today we will hopefully talk to some locals to hear about their worries, but also if the mass tourism already has an impact on Malta or not. But before we get into the concerns, let me talk a little bit more about the background of Malta, because I believe to really understand the problems here right now and why it is worth protecting Malta, you first have to understand what it actually is.
Malta is one of the smallest countries in the world. 316 square meters of limestone rock sitting in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. But what happened on this tiny island over the past 7,000 years is extraordinary. Every great power that ever wanted control of the Mediterranean came here. The Phoenicians, the Romans, the Arabs, the Normans, the Knights of St. John, Napoleon, and the British. Each one left something behind: a language, a building, a tradition. The result is a place that feels layered in a way that's almost impossible to find anywhere else in Europe. It's not one culture, it's all of them compressed into one small island.
What I immediately noticed when walking through Malta is that everything here is made from the same limestone. You can see that all of the buildings, every staircase, the roads, the apartments, the stores, like everything is really made of the same limestone that this island is actually made of. It gives the entire island this very warm look, and it makes it very aesthetic as well. And then you can also see lots of these wooden balconies here, and these balconies are actually leftovers from the Arab times. It was quite usual that women would be sitting behind these balconies so they could look outside what is happening on the streets, but they were hidden behind the windows. They look beautiful and they're painted in all different colors. These were probably all apartments at some point. A lot of those probably are still apartments. However, here in Malta, also short-term rentals have also taken over. It is the same thing that has happened in cities like Barcelona, where the entire city center, the heart of the city, is made of Airbnbs, short-term rentals, and so on. It causes locals to leave the city centers, and also it causes the prices of apartments to increase a lot. Locals are already facing problems. There are Airbnbs that take over the city center of Valletta, which means that rental prices go up. Apartments in general are scarce. In general, there are simply more and more people here. More tourists means more noise, it means more trash in the streets, and it also means that there are always more and more people on the most beautiful places, which usually makes it harder to enjoy these places in general. Yet I do understand why all of these people come here to Malta, because just in the capital, the potential of this island is already so clearly visible. And there's one thing that is worth flagging out. Coming here to Malta means that you will rely on public transport and ferry schedules. And that means that you will need mobile data. In the end, nobody wants to queue at the airport for overpriced SIM cards, or even worse, waste a lot of money on roaming charges, right? I always use Olafly for all of my trips. So before I came here to Malta, I set up the Olafly eSIM in the app, which took me less than 2 minutes. And by doing so, I have internet the moment I land. I can activate the eSIM on my phone with just one click, and then I'm already fine to go. And that means that I won't have any delays on finding my hotel, because I will instantly have maps, for example. I won't have translation problems if I need to use a translator. And of course, I will have access to all public transport schedules even before leaving the airport. So having an Olafly eSIM gives you peace of mind in general for all of your trips. Olafly offers eSIMs for more than 200 destinations, and in case you want to combine, for example, Malta with Sicily or any other place nearby, you can do so with one eSIM, because Olafly also offers regional eSIMs, which will give you mobile data in several countries. And Olafly now also has an always-on benefit, which will give you 1 gigabyte of mobile data each month. That means that even in between your trips, you will never completely run out of internet, because you will always have this 1 gigabyte whenever you need it. So if you have a vacation coming up, I recommend you to check out the Olafly webpage. Make sure to click the link in the description below, or you can also use my code AVENTURALINA, because it will give you a little discount on your eSIM purchase. We will now continue to walk through Malta, and I hope to finally be able to talk to some locals and to get their point of view on the entire tourism industry here in Malta. If local people, Maltese people, want to rent apartments here, is it getting harder?
Depends where is the place. if you find in Valletta, Slima, Bujibba, that place is a little bit high.
I think it's more expensive to have a flat here.
More expensive.
Much more.
And harder to find something here if you want to move as well?
In Valletta, it's very hard to find.
It's actually not easy to find some Maltese people here in Valletta who also live here. Most of them only work here, apparently. But I just talked to one. He lives here, and it's really sad actually what he said. He told me that in his area where he lives, there are more foreigners now than Maltese people. It happens in a lot of cities. It is in general also, in my opinion, not necessarily something bad, because our world is getting more and more international, right? However, he said that a lot of those people that moved into his building, they misbehaved. Like he said, Maltese people are very quiet people, and when they moved in, there was always loud music, they weren't behaving, and so on and so forth. But it also feels important to mention that he said that he is not against tourists in general. He said he himself travels a couple of times per year. So that is not the problem. People are welcome here and they can travel here, of course. However, he said that they need to behave, they need to adapt, be respectful, and that is completely understandable. And I think he also doesn't want Malta to only focus on tourists, because he said there are also other areas where Malta actually makes money. So maybe there should be like a better balance in between the tourism industry and like other industries here in Malta. Malta is definitely already feeling the pressure. There are more and more tourists coming each year, and Malta has recorded record numbers in 2025, where more than 5 million tourists were visiting this island. And we are talking about a country that only has 550,000 people living here, more or less. So that means that per every resident that lives here, there were 6 tourists here per year. Just to compare that with a country like Spain that is already struggling with overtourism since a very long time now, Spain has received record numbers in 2023, but at that time there were more or less 2 tourists per resident. So Malta has already reached 3 times the level of Spain. And yet, to be honest, I don't feel like it is that bad here. I mean, we are here at the beginning of May, so it's not yet high season. And when I walk through Valletta, I do notice streets that are very crowded. And yes, there are definitely also other places here on the island that are extremely popular and will be very crowded already now. However, if I compare it with Spain, for example, it still feels enjoyable. That's my impression for now. But let's continue our trip through the island because there's so much more to see here than just Valletta. We will see other places as well now and keep going on a road trip through Malta.
So next we were heading to Mdina. It is the old capital of Malta, and people kept telling me to not rush through Mdina. So I was just curious to see whether Mdina shows the same signs of pressure or whether being further from the main tourist trail has protected it.
We are about to enter Mdina. We are standing in front of its main gate right now. It was built in the 9th century and it is like a hilltop fortified city that was built by the Arabs. But then in the 1500s, the Knights of St. John arrived and they moved the capital to Valletta. And ever since then, Mdina remained as it used to be, which gives it a very unique character. The city is an ancient city which basically has its old ancient structure and architecture from old times, which makes it very interesting and very attractive for all these tourists here that you can see in the background. It feels extremely touristic, yet they also call it the silent city. I wonder why, because right now it doesn't feel silent at all. But we are going to enter it now and explore its very narrow and beautiful streets. Today there are actually still 300 people more or less living in the ancient fortified city of Mdina. Let's see if we can find some locals here and get information straight from them on how it feels to live in here with all these people coming every single day. To be honest, when we first entered, I thought this area here doesn't deserve the nickname the Silent City, at least not anymore. But then there are some very narrow and beautiful streets where there aren't crowds. In some streets there's nobody at all. And these streets are extremely silent, very peaceful, beautiful, and very enjoyable to walk through. But I think we still haven't seen any residents here. I mean, like a lot of these buildings here seem to be abandoned. It doesn't look like there are people living in there. In some we heard some music, but I don't think we've seen anybody who really lives here yet, at least not outside. Those that work here seem to be only working here, so they probably just come here during their working hours. I don't know, it seems to be a bit hard to really find local residents here. And then there's also a few signs like this one here that says, please respect the residents. I don't know, I can imagine that it can get extremely noisy here, extremely crowded, and that residents also suffer a bit below this. Again, we aren't here during high season, and yet there are areas so crowded here and noisy and so on. So yeah, I would love to know more about what it feels like to live here, but I think that's going to be a bit hard. I managed to find one of, or actually 2 of the 300 locals that live here in Mdina. I would call them locals. They aren't originally from here. He was from America, she was from Germany, but they explained me a few very interesting things. For example, the lady, she said that she left Germany because of the taxes. She is self-employed, she has her own business, and Germany is not very tax-friendly and not very business-friendly. I can only agree on that, actually. So yeah, that's why she decided to leave Germany, and at some point they came here to Malta and they realized it is so much smarter to build your business here, because she said she pays 5% of taxes. 5%. Like in Germany, she said she paid 50. Imagine that, from 50% to 5. That is insane, and it just makes so much sense. It is one of the income sources of Malta. Actually, they have these tax advantages here, which attract a lot of business owners, digital nomads, and so on and so forth, which also helps to increase the income of the country. And she also said that here in Mdina, of course, there are lots of tourists, especially during summertime. She said it is sometimes a little bit annoying if you have to leave the town because of the traffic and stuff and all the people. But then she also said that her house, the rooms go like inwards, not out to the streets. So the noise is not that bad, and she said you really don't hear anything. It's a beautiful house, like the area in general is beautiful. You have lots of advantages here on Malta in general, which is why she really likes it. And she was like, you also have an amazing quality of life here because you can just, go to the beach in summertime every day and enjoy your time off work on the beach, swimming in the sea. I mean, yeah, quality of life does exist, and apparently Mdina is a nice place to live despite the tourists. It always depends on what you make out of the situation. From up here, you notice better that Mdina is actually a hilltop city. We can get a great overview almost all over Malta, probably. Malta is not a very big island. Actually, you can go from one end to another within like 45 minutes by car. And it is located in the center of almost everything, in the center of Europe. It is close to North Africa, so it is really no surprise that all the empires before who wanted to control the Mediterranean Sea wanted to control this rock here, even though it's not that big. And now it is also only natural that more and more tourists arrive. It has a lot of history, it is a beautiful island, it is located in the heart of Europe, so basically it has the perfect location for like a round trip around Europe. It is only natural that now also the Americans arrive, and with that the island is getting more and more crowded. But there are still parts of the island that are supposed to be more hidden, more quiet, more laid back as well, and that's the part of Malta we are going to explore now. But for that we gotta take a ferry.
The next morning, we were taking the ferry to Gozo, Malta's sister island. It's 25 minutes across the water. From what I've heard, Gozo is the place that shows you what Malta is trying to hold onto. Our first stop was a citadel similar to Mdina, yet way less crowded.
The first impression of Gozo is that it does feel more tranquil, less stressful. However, there are also lots of historical sites here on this island that of course attract tourists. You can see souvenir shops, you can see places that are made for tourism. However, it still feels less crowded. I feel like it is a more relaxed, more laid-back place here. I'm curious to hear local opinions here on Gozo and also to explore further places of the island.
Gozo has around 37,000 people. Agriculture is still central to daily life. Landscapes that have looked the same for centuries still look that same way today. And the people are fiercely protective of that. They watched what happened to Valletta. They watched what is happening to Malta's southern coast. And many of them are determined Gozo will not go the same way.
This here is Schlendi, and we are walking to an area of this little town that still remains its old character because it used to be a fisher village. That was more than 50 years ago. The town has developed quite a lot, and nowadays it is a touristic place here in Gozo, and the fisherman character that it used to have definitely is gone. However, it still feels like a calm place and a beautiful place as well, for sure. I want to see how locals feel about it, that it has lost its traditional character and that it has developed into something completely new.
At the parking lot there used to be the old fisherman houses with different colored doors, but the place has changed.
Why did it change?
Development.
There are still some leftovers from the fishermen's time. There are a few boats every now and again that you can see, traditional fishing boats, and then there are places like this one here, which also is still from that time. However, you've heard it, like 85% of the buildings we see here, of the apartments, are made for tourism. There are lots of short-term rentals, Airbnbs. I don't think there are real hotels here. These seem to be all like apartments for tourists. However, I cannot stop thinking about one thing that the tour guide just told me. He said that Gozo, or Malta in general, depends on tourism, and that it depends on what kind of tourists you attract. He was totally for more tourism here on Gozo because people here live from that and they need it. But he also said that it really depends on what kind of tourists you attract. You don't want to have that junk tourist, that's what he said. So yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in there, actually. We cannot ignore the fact that Malta depends, of course, on tourism. It makes up a huge share of the GDP of Malta. So, of course, they will need tourism. It just needs maybe to be more balanced in between the main island and Gozo and Comino, maybe. I came to Malta wondering if Malta would become Europe's next place that would suffer a lot under mass tourism and would just be overcrowded and not very enjoyable anymore. But now that I'm here, I realized that there is still a lot of space here. It really depends on where you go. We've heard it here on Gozo that people think there could even come more tourists than there are right now. We've heard it. It is just not very well distributed around Malta. So there are places that are extremely crowded. Like even right now, if you come here in May, early May, there are places that are a bit hard to enjoy because there are just too many people right now. However, there is still much room here on this island. The island has a lot of potential. It is very understandable that so many people want to come here and visit it and get to know it. And I wouldn't say that you shouldn't come because it's too crowded right now. It's just very important to be aware of certain problems. It is important to see the local people that live here, to talk to them, to interact with them, to respect them and behave in a way that locals will actually enjoy having you as a tourist here in their country. So I think the balance is key here, and we will see in the future if Malta manages to maintain this balance.